Welcome to our usual hovers. I'm Meeka Nomicon, and today I'm playing for the game Tenpo Is. I'd like to say a massive thank you to the developer for sending me a key to their game, which is a story of a birth, where we follow two separate storylines that work together to unravel one tragic tale. I've just been asked, who are you? And I found myself at a loss for words. It's hard to explain. It'd be best to explain how I was born. My birth was only the unplanned consequence of unfortunate events. It was an accident. That's the case for lots of people, you might say. But let me tell you, my case is something else. I'm at a hospital right now, and my roommate doesn't seem to appreciate my company, so it looks like a good time to tell you the story. Meet the Maker. There's a pretty flower. Unfortunately, it's not a four-leaf clover, so we get no luck from this. This being is the cause of my current state of existence. To explain how I was born, I'll have to tell you about him first. A bit like someone would tell you about how their parents met. The comparison fits, somewhat. He lived in the forests of a mountain. He thought of that mountain as his territory and his home. Yet one day, that beloved land he used to know so well suddenly became a labyrinth. Whatever brought this change, he couldn't remember. In fact, he couldn't remember a lot of things. Some elements of this story were essential to his recollecting process. That's where you should come into play. Try and guess what these elements are. When you think you found one, click on it. A notification at the top left of the screen will let you know if you found something. I'll give you some clues to help you find these memory pieces. Here's the first one. There's that look again. You can click the magnifying glass button to read the last clue at any time. Back to the story then. Despite a very clear and strong sense of self, he couldn't remember anything about himself. His oldest memory was that of a fairly recent event, his very first encounter with a swarm of tiny problems. I saw you there. Am I being watched? A weird sort of creepy birds. One day, while trying to get as far away as possible from the screams of those birds, he happened once again upon that place where his few memories started from. It started with an unpleasant awakening. Pain was all he could feel until there was something else. Shrill, unidentified screeches. Oh no, has the birds found us? Then he managed to open up his eyes. A group of oddly shaped birds was violently pecking him, pulling at his feathers and drawing blood. You see, this is why we don't like birds in this household. They're evil little buggers. Their strength and violence went beyond those of any normal bird of that size. It took him a while to come to, and it took him even longer to act, as he was feeling impossibly tired and deprived of strength. Pervaded by a deep pain he couldn't really identify, he collected his strength and dragged himself across the terrain until he could rest his weight on a tree, and then, with mighty anger, he screamed, a scream so terrifying you wouldn't believe him capable of. The birds, surprised, swarmed back and just stared for a moment, flying in place. Then, as if satisfied, they flew away. At that, they left for a while, but only for a while. They kept coming back with increasing frequency. The forest, once his safe home, became more and more unusual, cold, other, unnaturally still. What large eyes you have, birds! Why do I get the feeling if you opened up your beak, you'd have like just millions of teeth? Although he couldn't remember, he knew something had drastically changed. It's the birds. They consumed everyone. Since then, those birds kept tormenting him, and that day they decided to play an especially nasty prank. Can they really be described as a prank? I mean, if they were aiming for his feathers. Not far from the place of their first meeting. When he was standing near the cliff. Oh, he got shunted off it? Oh, they dive bombed. Told you, birds are evil. The whole group violently charged him, pushing him off the cliff and making him fall. I mean, I would say, like, could he not just fly? But I'm assuming if you fall at that speed and that, like, you're surprised by it, maybe there was no chance of getting his wings out. Wait, it looks like you missed something. Would you like to go back to the start of the chapter? Okay, I missed something. Wait. Alright, let's try again. Oh, okay, so it's the bird we had to click on. Well done. We clicked the bird. 1 for sorrow. Is someone gonna get that? I suppose I should then. Where did we leave our phone? Hello? Oh wait, you're right here? Are you okay? You're not looking so good, buddy. Oh, Feely. I'm afraid I missed your call. I have to call him back. You have to come this time. They've asked about you specifically. I mean, there has to be a limit to how much you can refuse to do everything. Maybe another time. It's been rough lately. Living here takes effort. Then come back already. Why did you move there? What's the point if you basically have to stop living? Don't make me answer that one. I hate it. If anything happens, you won't even call the police. I'll bet you wouldn't even call for an ambulance, not to risk getting the house reported. Felice. Sorry, I went full nag mode. Yeah, I'd expect you to be somewhat understanding. I try. Honestly, it's not really the fact that you live there that gets to me. You went through some stuff these last years. I think there's a lot I don't know about, and that makes me worry. I can only try and guess what's going on. I don't know what I can do to help. The fact you live on the mountain just adds to this situation. I mean, suppose the good news is there's still cell servers up here. You might be the only one I've been honest with. You know about Valeria. You know about my mother. I know you're worried. I mean, looking back on how I've been acting, I can't see why. But it's okay now. I just couldn't deal with a problem that now has been long since solved. I'm grateful to you and Jin, and I feel sorry for worrying you. But it's fine now. Everything's fine. I believe you. Remember, I'm on your side. And sometimes you don't deserve it. I know. I also know how you think this sort of social bull is exactly what I need right now. It is! Huh. I'm not feeling very sociable. I getcha. So, this is kind of unrelated, but I've been meaning to ask for a while. How about I come over? With gin? Oh, doesn't seem like Herman's down for that suggestion. Right, is there something else I'm supposed to be looking for? I can't believe he accepted after all this time. I can't believe you even asked him after what happened last summer. He's better now. You're sure he's okay with it? Of course he is. I don't know. The signs at the end of the conversation kind of says otherwise. What about Fancy? What about me? Hey, how long have you been there? Is the Chad been eavesdropping on us? Oh, jeez, the bard has returned. I know how dangerous you are. A rough time. Should have just told him to bugger off. I should have done that months ago. I don't want to get them involved. But I keep delaying it. I knew it. You are really not fond of the idea of them arriving, are you? I think it's alright to see them one last time. Fabric fable. Oh, can't see what's so unsettling about it. And a void in her place. Oh, these are the two that I need to locate? I know what you're thinking. He's got wings, right? There's no way he could have fallen. That did cross my mind, yes. But I was taking into account the suddenness of the situation, and the fact the birds had been attacking the feathers, right? So that could have damaged the wings. Yet, he fell. The cliff was high, but not high enough for him to have time to recover and take flight. It was high enough to hurt. However, the blow to his pride was harsher than the one to his bones. I suppose the good news is he apparently didn't land on his wings, because I'm pretty sure a fall like that would have broken them. Somehow, he ended up somewhere else entirely, a place he couldn't remember ever visiting. An unknown house, an unknown lady, and a weird feeling of familiarity greeted him. Wait, where are you going? Did you not see me? He tried to keep quiet, wondering if his disgraceful fall had been witnessed. He observed the human walk towards the house and thought of how strange it was. Someone had apparently settled into the forest without him noticing. Or had he just forgotten? Oh! Hello, faceless being! The lady seemed to spot him at some point. She kept her head turned towards his direction. The dubious exchange of looks kept on for a short while, and he didn't move, unsure she could even be able to see at all. She proved to be able to see just fine when she invited him to come closer with simple gestures. After some uncertainty, he walked towards the house and followed the lady inside. Every feature of that house felt somewhat unreal and weird, but familiar, just like the lady herself. The kitchen was immediately to the left. Oh, is this the void that we're looking for? There she was. Between slow and swaying steps, she invited him, with gestures, to take a seat, meaning to offer him something to eat. Her movements were slow, calm. She seemed used to the situation. That was strange, considering how desolated the forest was. The plates and pots appeared to be all empty, but that was no matter, because at that point, the curious guest wasn't interested in food. He was just really thirsty. While debating whether to say something or not, she seemed to have just read his mind. Without a moment's delay, she turned to grab a bottle of water and a glass. Are we convinced that's water? You're not trying to get me drunk, are you? How could she know? She must have thought water is still better than an empty plate? What? Whoa, whoa, whoa. What the hell happened here? As soon as the water fell into the glass, a huge mass of water crashed onto the table and swept both of them away. Lady, I think our house just peed on us. It came down with such a force and speed that he was unable to react in any way. Oh no, I'm now being drowned. He opened his eyes, waking up on the floor of what must have been a different part of the house. No water in sight, his clothes dry. Either that sudden flood had been a dream, or he'd been unconscious for too long a while, he thought. Do you think the lady's dead? There was a room to his left, completely dark inside. Nothing came into sight, even barely. I say we enter the room. It couldn't have been a room of void, could it? Oh, wait, wasn't the void our clue? It was a case of one of two, and now it's the lady we're looking for, right? Don't think I can actually enter there. As he tried to peek inside, the door instantly closed, almost hitting his nose. Ooh, hello there. Have you got a void room in your house? I was denied entry. On the opposite side, there was another room that suddenly drew his attention as he noticed the lady sitting on a chair. The scene was entirely too familiar, but no matter how much he tried to get to the bottom of this feeling, it was useless. He couldn't remember. Also, we can't see any of the pictures. I wonder if we've been here before and the reason we can't see pictures is because they were actually related to our memories we've lost. With no clear intent, he entered the room, and lost in thought, he approached the lady. Oh, I'm a tiny little guy, aren't I? Oh well, I'm almost as tall as you while you're sitting down. Then, as if the most natural gesture in the world, she gently grabbed his hand, and he, usually timid, couldn't find any complaint in his heart, rather the opposite. Who are you? The lady didn't seem to hear. Before any doubt could stop him, he went for one of the handkerchiefs covering her face and pulled it away. With much surprise, he found another handkerchief covering her face in the same spot. Wouldn't it be quite unfortunate if literally her entire face was built of handkerchiefs, so currently I'm just peeling away her skin? Oh, that'd be quite unfortunate. He tried again and again, and there was always a handkerchief under the previous one. To all this, she showed no reaction at all. Imagine if I just got to the back of her skull. Who are you? He asked again, sounding a little restless this time. Then a grating sound of screaming birds got louder and louder. He couldn't tell where it was coming from. Are they coming from behind your handkerchief? Are you made up of birds? As if in response to that sound, the lady got up. Tenpo, be fearless. Strong, heartfelt words. Tenpo. He just stood there for a bit, as if frozen. He grabbed all the handkerchiefs he could grab, and as he pulled them off the lady, disappeared. Wait, so she was just made of the handkerchiefs? Oh. Why has she been torturing her for the last half a minute? He couldn't find out who she was, but it was at that moment that he realized. Tenpo. She knew me. Tenpo is my name. Had I really forgotten? Apparently, it wasn't something he had any reason to think about lately. His own name. The birds kept screaming, and the room seemed to slowly change. He couldn't tell for sure what was happening to the house, but he sure didn't like it. He had to leave. He realized he was upstairs. He ran down the stairs and looked for the front door. However, a new view of the kitchen stopped him in his tracks. It was different from before. It looked as if it had been left in a hurry somehow. Only a dirty plate on the table, chairs out of place, cupboards left open. Something about this view was especially desolating. As Tenpo dwelled in this ugly feeling, the birds doubled their screaming, screams so terrifying he had never heard. He looked outside from the kitchen's window. Surely enough of the detestable birds were right outside, complaining about who knows what. He wanted to leave, but definitely couldn't if they didn't leave first. Then, unexpectedly, something nice happened while he was looking out the window. All the birds died. A gust of wind did away with all the birds, and seemingly they finally decided to give up their haunting. Tenpo was beaming. He was finally able to leave. Now or never, he thought. However, the door wouldn't open. Okay, there it was. We had to click the gap where she once was. Well done. We've got both our clues. Two for mirth. They've arrived. Damn it! That early. Oh yeah, I haven't even cleaned this place up a little bit yet. And the birds are already here. Oh, I see you brought your child. I talked all sorts of crap. I talked all sorts of, I talked very ill of this place. In your face and behind your back. Right. And I almost feel bad about it now. Almost? Yeah, it looks nice. Thank you. You made it sound like it was half complete or something. Well, it kind of is. Wait, where did the kid go? I just noticed your bandaged hand. What happened? Wait, how did you notice that? Were you looking at my trousers? Oh, I got burned like an idiot. Don't tell me. While cooking for us? I bet you never cook. That one time you had to. You messed up. Am I right? I know I'm right. So according to you, I'd only eat raw food? Yeah, that's right. Refined, yet savage. I can't believe it took this long. Your place has been a mystery for how long was it? Like 2 years. I feel bad about that. It took me a while to actually convince myself and get some work done. Somehow, you get the feeling this is a man's kitchen. In a good way.
Frankly, that's what I was aiming for. What's that spot in the ceiling? I'm guessing it's one of those things that are not complete. Oh, do you mean my water hole? It's where I bring the water down from the ceiling. That was actually complete until I had a water infiltration. Wait, is that the actual spot it did flood the room?
In the middle of the ceiling?
I'll get it patched up properly at some point. I know, right? Water infiltrations are the worst. Here's my bedroom. We should skip it. Seriously, it's a mess.
I'll take a peek anyway. Excuse me, I thought I just told you to skip it.
Of course you do. And this is basically a storage for now. It's my mother's bedroom. Most of her personal belongings I didn't know what to do with. I ended up in here.
Oh, so she asked you to keep her stuff around?
Not really. We haven't talked about it. We haven't talked at all, to be honest. Wait, do we actually have a guest room for them? Ah, I'm afraid not. You will all have to sleep on the couch. It's time to tell you. I can't keep it to myself for a second longer. That haircut is a disgrace. I had a feeling you were going to say something about it. Of course. What age do you think you are? Is this your reaction to some kind of midlife crisis? Hey, I like to believe I still have some time before reaching midlife. Honestly, though, that means nothing coming from you.
Nah, he's fine. I can't even imagine him with short hair anymore.
Huh.
Yeah, that's okay. Listen here. One day you're going to cut your hair short again. Look at yourself in old pictures and say, "Good,
What was I even thinking? Pictures.
he won't."
You heard the oracle.
He's cool, you know. So serious and focused.
And I said, and you find that hot? Thanks. You're a true friend. But was she for real? Me. Focused.
I know, right?
That's what I call poor judgment.
That's fine, though.
You really need this kind of poor judgment and bad taste right now. That might be true, but don't you goddamn try.
I knew you were going to say that. Why, though? She's cute.
I thought you kinda liked her.
Eh,
Meh? What?
I mean, he can definitely find better.
Not right now, he won't. It looks as if he hasn't slept in 20 years. Ah, I'm afraid, Herman, we missed the mark. I was aiming for 30 years of no sleep. Thanks again.
Still, he always was somewhat popular. You were.
I'll never understand that. I remember the other kids mistook you for cool or some reason. You were popular too. That's one's a real mystery.
You were on a different level. I had girls insider info.
Do we really need this conversation? I think we do.
You started it, love.
She's in stable condition, meaning she's not waking up, but they couldn't really find out what caused the condition in the first place. So there's still hope, and so on and so forth.
We hope for the best.
There's something really important we were about to forget. What? Your bag with your stuff? What? Aren't you coming to stay for a while? Oh, wait, so you guys aren't staying with me? Is there something I'm not remembering? How much did I drink? Not enough. Seriously though, come with us. Take a week off. I'll be honest, Feely. I can't put up with you for that long. Sign of true friendship. I'm sick of you after a single day. Come on, I'm not that bad. I've been decent since I've moved in with Jin, I swear. Can she confirm? You waited for her to get in the car to say it. She can. Possibly. But listen, I just want you to get out for a while. Like, really, out of this house. Take a break. No. I'm sorry, I'm coming for a couple of days, maybe in spring, if Jin is okay with it. Of course. Jin is okay with it. You should talk it over. We have. Look, if you really don't believe me, she'll tell you. Wait, I believe you. Thanks, really. But I still can't right now. Why? Spring is miles away. February. Late February. Probably be okay for me.
I didn't think you'd invite him over right away.
Oh, you lying liar. Jim was not okay with it. I had to.
I know. I just would have waited a couple of days, not to push him too much.
It's easier for him to refuse by phone.
Apparently, he still managed to refuse in person.
I'm really worried. I even asked him if I could stay.
You did?
I should have insisted. This time, I feel like I made the wrong choice.
The charming one.
Okay, so the clues we need to find? Not charming at all, you say? And the one opinion it hurts to think about. Okay, actually, so maybe the not charming at all is going to be like a person? And the one opinion, that one could be a person as well, actually. Tenpo tried opening the door again. It wouldn't budge. Could somebody have locked it while he was upstairs? Was that somebody in the house? He just stood there for a moment, feeling frustrated, but not quite worried yet. Following reason, he decided to go back and explore the rest of the house, but apparently, the entrance to the living room had disappeared, as if it had never been there to begin with. There was just a wall. Swiftly, he tried going back to the kitchen, but a wall was in place of that entrance as well. Oh, I've been boxed in. Now that looked like something to worry about. He wasn't one to panic. He had very little patience when things didn't go his way. A raspy scream of frustration escaped him. There was a glass right above the front door that let some light into the small room. Oh, but it seems barred up. With a jump and a couple of flaps of his wings, Tenpo gave a quick look outside. Oh, hi there. What big teeth you have, sir. There was a man, or something that looked like one, standing near the door. Okay, that was our first clue. Wait. And not charming at all. I don't know, I found you rather charming. So now we're just looking for the opinion that hurts to think about. Tenpo was frightened for a moment, but quickly recovered. He banged on the door, fists clenched. The man outside noticed the commotion. He listened on, trying to understand what was happening on the other side of the door. Then, a very angry command came his way. "Open the door!" "What? Are you talking to me?" "Open the door!" "Are you locked in?" "Well, in any case, I can try." "Oh, thank you most kindly, sir. Say I knew he was charming, really." "All right, then." The non-aggressive, almost friendly response Tenpo received was far from expected. Actual attempts were made. Tenpo could tell the door was being forced from the other side. I can't. It's either locked or stuck or something. I don't think it can be opened from outside without a key in any case." "Ah! Do you really have to use this door? Is it your only way out?" "Yes!" "Wait, here's an idea." "I'm all ears." Tenpo didn't even have the time to notice the man outside had suddenly disappeared. That a black hole had already opened up on the floor, and the man was standing there, right behind him. "Well, that's a neat trick. Can I join you in your black goopy puddle?" He was taller than expected and looked absolutely inhuman. "Why don't you try this too? Look!" Oh, I love the goopy sound effects. The man descended and emerged from that same black hole to show his point. "Come on, try." "I don't mind if I do." The tall man took Tenpo's hand, and they both walked over to the black hole on the floor. There seemed to be no threat in this man's ways, despite his appearance. Tenpo was stuck in uncertainty, yet did not oppose resistance. "I mean, that's a neat trick, but you didn't exactly explain how I was to do it." The man descended down the hole as he had done before. Tenpo, however, remained in the exact same spot. So the man immediately returned, taken aback, although it was hard to tell. They tried again and failed, and kept failing for a while. "I don't think this is gonna work." "I have no idea what's wrong. I think you're just you. It doesn't work with you." "I guess I'll have to live with this shameful limitation. That's not what I wanted to do." "Right. I just need the door to simply open." "You'd think that opening a door would be easier than opening a magical hole in the ground." The man seemed to just stare at the door for a moment while Tenpo eyed him. "Wait, let me check something." The man descended again and disappeared for a number of seconds. Then he returned. "I don't understand. I can't access those other rooms at all. I can see them from outside, but it's like they're not really there. Ah, they were consumed by the void. Yet I can still enter this room. My guess is you need a key. There has to be a key somewhere. Although it's weird how it doesn't budge at all. Maybe it's stuck and we just need a strong enough pull." "Stronger than mine? That's hardly possible." "If that's the case, why did you ask me to try at all?" Tenpo attempted to open the door again, and the man tried to help him by adding his strength and pulling together with him. They failed once again. "Ow! Could have gone without your elbow in my guts." Tenpo, that's usually the time you've got to apologize. Tenpo just stood there and stared at the man for a while. What?
Who are you, anyway?
I'm Manhole.
Manhole? Had I not known about your preferred traveling method, I would have found that name pretty funny.
It still is pretty funny. And what's yours?
Tenpo.
Pleased to meet you, Tenpo.
It's not a common name here.
Tenpo himself wasn't sure why he felt the need to say that. To be fair, I don't think Manhole is exactly popular either. Oh, I see. Because Manhole is a common name. Good one.
I accidentally said something witty.
So, I assume you live here on the mountain?
Don't you as well?
Not exactly. Everyone knows the Manholes lives in the city. As you already saw, I'm from downwards.
Downwards as from down the mountain?
Oh no, from down the portals.
Aren't there villages and towns? He doesn't look like he'd go unnoticed among humans. He'd definitely stand out.
Oh, I guess the chair. The opinion. The lady. The lady was the opinion that mattered.
He'd definitely stand out.
So, care to tell me how you ended up stuck in here?
I was trying to escape a group of mad birds. I found myself near this house and decided to hide here for a while.
Are you talking about a bunch of eye-shaped birds who have been roaming the forest as of late?
Yeah, I am.
I hate them so much. I've been trying to get rid of them, in fact.
Without success, I suppose.
I thought I was the only one who took notice of them. They're definitely a problem. They're aggressive, disruptive, and the forest has turned desolate since they arrived. Haven't you noticed? Tenpo didn't respond. The forest was desolate. The forest was different. Could those birds really be the reason? Anyway, what happened then?
I met a woman, but she seems to have vanished, just like the way to the other rooms.
You think she's behind these weird house hijinks? Witches living in forests are common in folk tales, after all. Manhole seemed to be joking, but Tenpo wasn't in the mood.
She's not. I'm sure of that.
I mean, are we? Because she was made up of handkerchiefs. He looked worried for a moment. Well, first things first. Let's get you out of here somehow. I'll go look for help. Then once you're out of here, you know what we should do. We should go find those birds and kill them. Oh, I approve this message, Manhole. They might look like an army, but it's actually a small group. They're tricky to catch, but with your help, we're not going to fail. It's not something I'm looking forward to be honest. But what if the choice is there? I just want things to go back to normal.
I agree. Thanks for the help.
Manhole disappeared, and Tenpo briefly observed him through the narrow glass. He seemed to be heading for the forest. Okay, it's time for us to snoop around, right? Oh, my doors are back. Well done. Three for a funeral. Part 1.
I told you not to let him watch scary movies.
I swear I haven't. Oh, is the kid traumatized? I haven't.
Then why are you making that face, you dumbass? You totally have.
So what did you let the kid watch? Was it Terrifier? I feel like that would definitely traumatize a kid.
So, what were you saying about Herman's branch at work?
I happened to have a talk today with one of those guys that got me thinking. I don't think he even tried to explain anything back then. He didn't ask for a change of schedule. I mean, if there was something going on, he could have said so. He didn't. He literally just up and left. Now, he's not even trying to go back, and he was way too vague when we asked him about his future plans. Seriously, what could he ever lead to this?
His mother being in a coma surely didn't help, even though he acted as if it was no big deal.
Of course, he never implied he didn't care. I would have been a flat-out lie.
It's got to be harsh to see your parent unconscious, especially when you feel there's so much you'd need to talk about.
Yeah, but I think there's got to be something beside that.
I think so too. Something big we don't know about.
I remember how he was during the breakup. He might have been depressed, but we still talked. And he still was the same old him. The last conversation we had that felt real was before he broke up. He'd been wanting to do it for a long time. However, he started acting weird a while after that. Something changed after he moved to his mother's house.
Maybe he got into some addiction or debts, maybe.
I wish he would have told me. That's the sort of stuff we'd talk about.
Could he be so neck deep in debt that he cut contact with us not to get us in trouble?
That's actually something he would do. Maybe he was heading that way since before. Could also be why he left Valeria in the first place.
Or it might have all started once he got hold of his mother's possessions. Gambling, losing, debt. Not that he really strikes me as the gambling type, though.
Well, who knows? His mother might have been hiding some riches. It's not like we know anything about her.
I never even knew what happened between them.
Me neither. I just know one day she left her family out of the blue to go live by herself on the mountain in her own folks' home. And that's all. I don't even know whether her parents were still alive at the time. The worst thing is, I don't think he ever got to know much more than that either.
I'm realizing just now he ended up doing the very same thing his mother did. He only had the foresight of doing it before getting married. Poor Valeria. I don't think she's over it yet.
It feels like it was just yesterday we were all on holiday together. And now.
Hey, love.
Can't sleep? Are you still traumatized from the Terrifier? Ungracious guests. All of them. Okay, so this time we're looking for is an odd metaphor and redundant, but not without reason. Tenpo was once again able to move around the house. Every door and window leading outside was closed and apparently unbreakable, as he learnt. That desolating view of the kitchen was now gone, and the house had gone back to normal, but the lady was still nowhere to be found. Oddly, that made him feel somewhat lonely. He'd been looking for the front door key for a while, with no result. I bet the lady disappeared with it. Having tried everywhere else, he decided to search the kitchen. While closing one of the cupboards, Tenpo's eyes fell on an old poster on the wall. Oh, a little seedling! It depicted a stylized hand holding a sprouting seed. A good product comes from a good seed. Is this going to be the metaphor? It is! Wonderful. Something to do with agriculture. Weird nonetheless. For a moment, that seed looked kind of off. He didn't feel like taking any chances. Could the birds have been in the house? The birds are everywhere. Without any movement too sudden, he left the kitchen and went for the stairs. I knew it. A bedroom, a bathroom, and that one dark room that he didn't really want to check. The bedroom felt like the safer option. Yet, once he stepped in, he felt a change. The ugly feeling of having just done something wrong. He started hearing the birds again, screams getting closer and closer, but from where he couldn't tell for sure. Ah, is that the redundant action? Nervous, he pushed against the door to keep it closed. Then he felt banging from the other side. The screams got louder until quite suddenly it all stopped. Tenpo calmed down and looked out the door through the keyhole. It was fuzzy, but he saw that the door on the other side of the room had been opened. How is it open now? Did they do it? Did they go in there? Did they come out of there? What is there in that room? Oh, okay, so apparently that's second action. Ah, it's closed again. I told you, we should have entered it when we had the chance. Suddenly, a loud choral screech came from behind him, making him jump out of his skin. The birds were behind him, inside the room somehow. They started swarming aggressively towards Tenpo, and he opened the door to run away. Just slam the door behind you. Oh! Hello, masked figure. It looked like Manhole had just gotten there. Are you okay? His body liquefied, and like a huge wave entered the room. Are you going to consume the birds? The birds, terrified, had no time to react and were apparently erased away, disappearing completely. You just ate the birds! Kudos! For a brief moment, Tenpo wondered if that had been the end of the birds. A clear answer came as soon as Manhole got back in one piece. I didn't get a single one of them. So I managed to access the rest of the house. I can now see it was no special accomplishment since you were all here. But hey, I came back just in time. You should have called me. Tenpo was still a bit shocked and didn't really process what Manhole was saying. He entered the room again. I'm really sorry, Tenpo. I haven't been able to find any help for the front door. But maybe, now that the house works again, the front door will too. By the way, those birds are vicious. They seem to come after you especially. What's their deal with you? I think they're just jealous of my wings. I'm not sure. They've been attacking me constantly ever since I can remember, which is not a very long time. What do you mean? I only remember recent events. I can't remember anything about myself in the past. My oldest memory is somewhat recent. I remember waking up, laying on the ground, cold and in pain, at the base of a tree. Those birds, or whatever they are. I call them peeps, by the way. That's a good name. So they woke me up. It felt like they were trying to eat me alive. It felt extremely weak, but somehow I managed to crawl away from them, scream at them, and that seemed to get them to give up. Then I just crashed and slept for who knows how long, laying on that tree. As I woke up, I knew something was wrong. I couldn't remember anything beside the encounter with the birds. I figured I would have remembered sooner or later. That never happened. Now those birds will start chasing me as soon as they find me, more aggressive than before. Here's what I think. They attacked you, and you fell from the tree. You hit your head and lost consciousness, as well as your memories. I guess they might have been trying to eat you for real while you were unconscious. Good thing you woke up before they managed to really hurt you. Manhole ended up finding a bright side. What a great guy! That might just be it. Hmm. What? What is it? Manhole. Manhole appeared to get closer and bow slightly. Oh! Manhole, I do believe you're melting. But then, Tempo realized it looked more as if his face was melting off his head. Manhole! His face and the rest of his body swiftly melted into a hole on the floor. Manhole! I may think he's dead. Three for a Funeral, Part 2. Oh, that can't be good. Oh, avalanche! Is my house in the direct path? What the? Earthquakes registered at regular intervals. Epicenters located in restricted access areas. Avalanches and landslides, 3 roads closed. Red alert for 6 towns at the base of the mountain. Well, our friend is now trapped up the mountain. Herman! Ah, they're having a bird meeting. I bet they're plotting my demise. Well, sadly for them, the avalanche is going to get me first. Oh, is this about our mother? We've missed 9 phone calls. What am I looking at? So what do you reckon? Do you think the mother passed away? I mean, it's usually bad news when the husband tries to phone you that many times. Okay, so clues we're looking for. First encounters, and this tragedy is missing an act. Okay, so we know first encounters can't be the birds, the woman, or manhole. Now that's a man that's lost composure. Manhole's body had literally melted before Tempo's eyes. He'd shown the ability to melt earlier. It was apparently something he could do. But the way it had happened this time, seemed very odd. For one thing, the hole left behind this time wasn't closing up. Maybe he wasn't feeling well. He might have even fainted, so he couldn't close it at all. For a while, Tenpo tried calling Manhole through the hole, but then... Manhole! Ah, we get an avalanche instead. He fell on his back and wings, and then on his legs, and he kept falling on himself for a bit, somewhat disgracefully. That was the oddest earthquake he had ever experienced, and he didn't like it one bit. Even odder was that he assumed to be its cause. The whole room had shifted. What used to be the floor was now a wall, and the hole that was once the wall as well. Furniture seemed to be glued on the walls. That wasn't normal. Tenpo thought there must have been a reason for what had just happened. He could look through the hole more easily, now that it was useless. There was nothing to be seen. Was he supposed to go through? He already tried before, and it didn't go well. This time he was alone. Not even gravity was on his side. Oh! I actually can go through this time though. Yet this time, he went through. Oh, excellent! Manhole, I appreciate your help. He found himself looking down on trees. He heard the rustling of the wind through foliage. He felt tree bark under his fingers. He finally was outside. He felt some sort of comfort in being able to observe his surroundings from above a tree. Suddenly, he wondered what could ever be there, immediately behind himself. How had he gotten there? There was a hole in the tree, but it wasn't completely dark. He could see its boundaries, where it started and where it ended. It was a very much finite space. Logic couldn't explain how the black hole in the house had led him up on that tree. That was fine. All it meant to him was he couldn't go back, and he was glad. He came down and looked around. He'd already gone through that place recently. He spotted an area with just one lonely tree. That one very familiar tree. As he went closer, he noticed a dark figure kneeled beside the tree. Manhole, is that you? You could have told me you had figured a way out, you weirdo. Manhole didn't answer. He didn't even turn to look at Tenpo, nor did he react in any way. Tenpo tried calling him again and resumed walking until he was in front of him, and for a while, Manhole didn't react at all. Then, Manhole raised his head, presumably regarding Tenpo, without saying a word. Tenpo moved around, but Manhole kept still, ended up staring at empty space. It took him a second of confusion. And then he turned around with a sudden movement. The birds are back. There were the birds, immobile, staring back. Wait, are the birds like weeping angels? They'll only move if they're not being looked at. The stare down was between Manhole and the birds. It was as if he wasn't even there. Everything was still for a few moments. Tenpo could feel the tension, despite not being involved. Wait, why does it look like I'm being hung? Perfect. I'm guessing that was our opinion that matters. Oh no, first encounters. Then suddenly, the birds flew away, leaving the tree all at once, and disappeared, as did Manhole. Tenpo found himself alone. Was that real? Maybe it was, for Manhole. Maybe this is an old memory of his. That thought acted as a direct gate to a feeling of entrapment. And with that, the forest around him gradually turned into a black location, seemingly impossible to navigate. That's when Tenpo started to think he probably was still inside the house. He had never made it out in the first place. Well, that's a very pessimistic style of thought. Something cemented this belief in his mind, but he wasn't aware of what it was. For a while, he just stood there, feeling trapped in the nothingness. The no direction looked better than the other until he saw a little something moving in that nothing. A little sludgy puddle of black. Oh, jeez. Of course it's the bird. That after a while manifested as one of those birds coming out of the floor. Tenpo was ready to defend himself, but apparently there was no need. The bird wasn't aggressive. It was just looking around, then jumping back and forth, appearing aware of his presence. There had to be some sort of trick at play, he thought, but then he realized the bird was trying to lead him somewhere. I don't know if I should trust you, bird. He kept jumping towards a specific direction, where Tenpo saw another bird, some steps ahead. He expected a group attack to happen, but he would have been able to defend himself if the need came. So he decided to follow them. After a while, he started to wonder whether they were really going somewhere or just going in circles. But then, all the birds vanished, turning around a corner. He found himself in what seemed to be a room. He could make out its borders and some of its features, more or less. Where did you lead me, bird? One bird appeared in the room. This one was staring at Tenpo, standing still unlike the others. The structure of that room was not unknown to Tenpo. It felt like a déjà vu in that moment. Did he really know that room, or was it a trick of his mind? He had a vague feeling of how the room should have been, but he couldn't really visualize it, no matter what. One single object in that room was unmistakably identifiable. Is it the picture hanging on the wall? Oh, it's Manhole! There was a picture of Manhole with the birds. Manhole, what secrets are you hiding? They were perching on his shoulders and his arms, and Tenpo figured they had to be getting along to be in that pose. Akin souls from different worlds that one day met. Those words were written on the back. Tenpo wondered what that meant. There appeared to be more behind their past than what Manhole had tried to let on. Ah, and then you killed the birds. Everything suddenly changed. Ah, so the picture was our second memory. Well, everyone knows a dead bird's a good bird. The picture changed. The words behind it were gone. The birds now seemed to be dead. What was wrong with that? Nothing, actually. That was exactly what he and Manhole were aiming to accomplish. Yet, that new picture didn't sit right with him. Maybe he had to dwell on these unpleasant feelings. Why were dead birds a problem? They shouldn't have been. In fact, their death should have been the end of a problem. More birds started jumping into the room. attempting no aggression, rather just staring, waiting or curious about something. They were fine, each of them alive and well. So what did this all mean? A new concept captured his mind. He turned to look at the room again, and then again at the picture. Something isn't right. Besides the picture itself, no one would ever hang a picture on that wall. There is no wall over there. That's enough. Tenpo was suddenly overtaken by a violent shockwave that hurled him away, allowing no more room for conjecture. What are you hiding? Oh, you're locking me out. God damn you, manhole. Knocking birds. He was wrong. Is the he manhole? Enough! I am getting rid of every single one of you. I don't need his help. Oh, it seems like manhole has a rather vicious feelings for the birds. The confrontation between manhole and the birds seemed to have been very harsh this time around. Tenpo could see them through a peculiar flower-shaped hole. Hey, manhole, you dead? Manhole seemed to stare straight at him through the hole for a moment. Then Tenpo suddenly fell down from wherever he was. It felt more like an enclosed slide than an actual fall. When he finally stopped, he felt immobilized. He couldn't see. He could hardly move at all. Part of him wanted to panic, but another part of his mind was telling him that he was close to resolution. And this prison of dirt he seemed to be in was nothing but a weak attempt of fate at keeping him down. He looked to his right, above his shoulder. Something was moving through the dirt. It was one of the birds. Oh, so Menho wasn't able to kill you all. Tenpo hadn't really understood what was going on. He only knew that bird gave him solace like nothing else. Together, they started slowly moving upwards through the dirt. Manhole could still be heard, sounding caught up in the fight. I just want this to end. You don't realize what you're doing. Why won't you leave us alone? Damn all of you. Why? We could finally live in peace. Don't you think he's been through enough? Tenpo kept going up. The dirt got softer, but then he encountered concrete. Luckily, he wasn't as resistant as he expected it to be. Another bird appeared on his side and started pecking against the concrete. Oh, thought you were going to aim for my hands then. Then another bird appeared and did the same. The words out of manhole got weirder, as if he'd suddenly started talking to somebody else, and the birds on Tenpo's side became more and more. Was that really manhole's voice? How are you? What have you been doing? I've had a lot of work to do lately. You won't remember me. It must have been tiring. I've been making some changes. I see. Oh, I think manhole got the bird. They all banged their hands and beaks against what looked like a wooden wall. Manhole's words resonated all around them, as if he was right there. By this point, however, Tenpo was sure those words weren't actually manhole's. Will I remember you? Oh, the only way to stop this. An unknown force suddenly pulled him downwards yet again. It was like being swallowed. Whatever source of strength had guided him up to that point mercilessly disappeared. Where did the birds go? What is he talking about? Okay, I've just realized I was doing this wrong. Because the clue we're looking for is actually broke up into 3 parts. So there's a word on each 3 of these screens. So it's I. Remember. You. And that proves him wrong. Because I remember you. Oh, it opened. Manhole, now finally out of adversaries to fight, stared at Tenpo. They found themselves in a bedroom. Manhole moved to the center of the room to face Tenpo. Tenpo got up, a new feeling in his heart, a new tone in his voice. You don't want me to understand nor remember. I can't believe you managed to get back here. Am I right? I'd do anything to bring us out of here, back to the forest. Why? Don't dwell on the past when there's nothing good to remember. Getting out of this house isn't really the point, or is it? You don't want to go through that path. I can't remember clearly, but there is one feeling I cannot absolutely doubt. Don't. You are the worst kind of traitor. Oh, I don't remember anything, Manhole. But I remember I'm mad at you, apparently. Manhole dissolved at that. I'm not. Tempo heard these words being spoken in a strange voice as Manhole dissolved. A hole left behind was slowly closing off. Should I risk jumping through it? Nope, that would have been a bad idea. I can't help you now. Tenpo navigated the house without a doubt in his heart and got in front of what he felt had to be the front door. Do you open now? He met no resistance. He opened it and went outside. The lady was there. Ah, so I didn't just murder you. Oh, you shed your handkerchiefs. I couldn't leave without you. We both need to leave. I know. Oh no, the birds are back. The birds reunited, quietly, at his side. Are we friends now? I could have sworn we were mortal enemies at one point. 4 for Birth, Part 1. Oh, is that the crackling of the fire? I thought it was someone eating then. Sleeping soundly, I see. That hasn't happened in a while, has it? Why are you sleeping down here? I wonder if you think it's safer. That'd be foolish of you. I'm glad you're alive and well, Herman. I really am. I hope you get the most out of this sleep. I slept through most of the day. I actually slept. Just in time for another earthquake. It's still going. Oh no, are we losing power? What's going on? Why isn't it coming out? Oh, we get black goop instead. Something tells me that's not edible. What is this? I'll check the well. Wait, during an earthquake? That seems like a bad idea. Just what I need. Back door it is then. Wait, have we been snowed in? It's not that dark out, is it? It can't be. But it seems like the back goop will find some way to get in regardless. I see. I guess it's time. The day before. Hey, you.
Hey,
What happened?
I got fancy to talk.
What did he say? Should I get back early?
Don't worry, we'll talk tonight. He's fine. I think he's better now that he's told me.
Wait, don't leave me in suspense. I need to know.
What difference would have made telling you in the afternoon?
I can't make any sense of this. I mean, are you sure?
Yes, even though it was dark in there, he still gave me a detailed description of it. He couldn't tell if it was male or female, but it looked young. Short dark hair, a weird pointy nose. Its skin was completely white, like a ghost, he said. His words.
Wait, is that gonna be Tenpo? Was there a bad smell?
He mentioned the whole room smelled weird, but I don't know what kind of weird.
But how? Was it like all cooped up in there? I don't understand.
It was apparently sitting in there. There was enough room for it.
What was it wearing?
Black, something like a black shirt. There were old clothes hanging on both its sides, but it's not clear whether they were supposed to be hiding it.
Huh. You know what he saw, don't you?
No, I really don't.
It was a doll.
A doll? Why? No, you don't understand. It was big.
Don't ask why. Of all the questions you could ask.
Oh, now I see what you mean. But those dolls are very clearly something else. Fancy couldn't even tell if it was a boy or a girl.
You know, I might be judging too quick here. It might have also been a puppet. Maybe an artsy, really realistic one. Could also have been his mother's, considering it was in that room. It was my mother's bedroom, but I left there most of her personal belongings. I didn't know what to do with.
How are you so calm about this? How can you be so sure?
Calm about a friend hiding a doll in a wardrobe?
How can you be so sure when your son cried about what might have been a dead person?
Jin, he's a child. He's never seen a real dead person. Not a realistic doll, I don't think.
Still, I find it unbelievable.
What is more believable? Do you seriously suspect Herman to have hidden a corpse in his wardrobe? I mean, I like to think Herman would at least bury it in the garden if he knew you guys were going to appear. Right then, as we were coming to visit?
I'm just saying that Fancy didn't lie. He's a lot more discerning than you think he is, even considering his age. I also know that Herman wasn't himself. He wasn't fine. You said so too. A change like that must have been caused by something that can't be remedied. That's something I thought about that very day we went to his house. Now I have an explanation for it.
You aren't thinking clearly. You really need to calm down and take the time to think about this more logically.
I took my time. I decided that whatever it was that Fancy saw wasn't there for anyone to see. I don't know what degree of wrong it was, but I can't just take your explanation for certainty.
All right. What do you intend to do?
For now, there is only one thing I'm sure about. That is never speaking of this. Never mention it, Felice. Ever.
You mean to Herman?
To anyone.
That's some dark secret, all right. He would never recover. That's some sort of stuff people won't forget.
Why aren't you taking this seriously? You have no idea what Fancy saw. You have no way of knowing how Herman might react.
I know what he saw. The only one who doubts him is you. I have no doubts.
I don't care about your lack of doubts. I have no intention of putting my son's safety at stake because you lack doubts.
What you're saying is, Herman isn't our friend anymore because he hides a doll in a wardrobe.
If that's the only way to be safe, then yes.
Or, hear me out, pay him another visit and you go look in the wardrobe. I see. Nice goddamn friend you are.
Oh, so she asked you to keep her stuff around.
No, we haven't talked about it. We haven't talked at all, to be honest.
I really don't know what to hope for.
Ah, the earthquakes are never ending, it seems. And the black ink is spreading. Was this our bedroom? Oh, it might be our mother's one. Ah, it's got the same kind of doors. Ah, hi there. Tempo. Tenpo remembered everything he had forgotten. This is what happened, starting from around 2 years before. November. Tempo was in company of a woman. Her name was Marta. She looked somewhat tired and saddened. Tempo was concerned and gloomy. When I asked what you wanted me to do, you didn't answer. Why? I kept talking, and it was like you weren't listening.
You did very good, Tenpo. You have to decide by yourself sometimes, even for me. I trust you'll take good decisions.
They hugged. Tenpo and Marta were very close.
You don't need to be my shadow. I'm fine now. If you stay inside for too long, you become all jumpy and quirky. Go now. Don't worry. Be careful.
They released each other's hands, and Tenpo left. December Part 1. Marta had always told him not to be around while other humans were over at her house. She would have called if necessary. Tenpo had been away for a few days. During those days, there had been a constant coming and going of cars, people. It was definitely unusual. Humans went there sometimes. It wasn't a frequent occurrence, but it happened. Car! Car! Nothing moved in Marta's house. Every room was dark. No one at the windows. Tenpo kept announcing his presence until he got suspicious about the complete lack of response. He decided to go inside and check by himself. Something was different about the house. Many objects scattered around and many missing. Had a robbery taken place? That seemed unlikely. The few things that could be considered valuable in the house were still around and on display. Did something happen to Mara? He couldn't find her anywhere in the house. Mara normally went to the nearest village only in the morning or midday. She wouldn't have left the house in that state. Still, she was a bit unpredictable, and it wouldn't have been the first time she broke an habit. So Tenpo wasn't too worried. He let himself fall on her bed, face down. He turned around again and again, delighting in the soft surface, until he fell asleep. In his sleep, he heard a strange noise. A car? By the time he woke up, they weren't car noises anymore, but heavy footsteps inside the house. Hold on. Okay, so it was Marta, Herman's mother. In a flash of panic, Tenpo jumped down the bed and tried to get the window open. Those definitely weren't Marta's footsteps. With his head out the window, he peeked around for just a moment to make sure no humans were outside. Then he flew towards the nearest tree. He decided to stay in hiding to observe. After a while, he saw somebody in Marta's room, closing the window and the curtains. He couldn't see this person's face. That's definitely Herman. There was somebody in Marta's bedroom, and Marta wasn't there. December Part 2. Tenpo observed from afar. Cars and other vehicles came and went almost every day. Some sort of maintenance works were taking place inside and outside the house. Marta was never there. Was she brought away against her will? Why didn't she call him? She swore she would have, if in danger. He rarely ventured far from the forest. He definitely hadn't during these days. He would have heard any sort of human commotion. Maybe she decided to leave. She wouldn't have done that without a good reason, nor without telling him first. Tenpo was starting to think the only way to find out what was going on was to confront one of the humans directly and ask. Days went by as he waited for Marta to come back. Sometimes, when no strangers seemed to be around, he kept trying to call her, screeching sadly. Whenever he'd see humans, his thoughts became darker and darker as the days went by. I'll kill you! If you hurt her, I'll kill you! He found himself starting to plot revenge. Most of the humans seemed to just go along with their manual jobs and not even talk about Mara. Except for one time, when Tenpo managed to catch a conversation that seemed to refer to her. Why would he want to live here? It's too isolated. Is it even legal? You saw the sign. It's restricted access just like the rest of the mountain. Boss said he's a friend and he owes him. Yeah, but one has to wonder, you know. Can you believe an old woman lived here? Seriously, how did she even manage in the middle of nowhere like this? Sounds like they've never met Mara. They're working for somebody else? Who is it? There has to be someone responsible for all that is happening. The one person that seems to always be here. The one person that stands out. The one person that often remains here alone. There was this one human. He stayed for long and even slept there sometimes. Wasn't that the same person that was in her bedroom that night? Sadness and anger grew in Tenpo's heart as he kept seeing the same man in the house and in the forest. For about a month, Tenpo couldn't find the right time to observe him up close. January. When they met for the first time, they were both in the forest. Tenpo had seen him many times by then. He didn't seem like a disruptive human, and he wasn't too noisy. However, he was extremely suspicious, because since he was there, Marta wasn't. He was likely the culprit of her disappearance, therefore the likely target of his questioning and, possibly, his revenge. That day, he seemed to just be taking a walk in the forest. Tenpo heard him get closer and tried to be as quiet as possible. He moved towards the path the man was walking. Sooner or later, he'll have to see me. Something on the ground grabbed the man's attention, so he stopped to check. Let's see how he reacts. Tenpo gathered courage and jumped on the tree right in front of the man. He didn't have a definite plan on what to do next. He decided to follow his impulse, and he was very angry. I might just be the last thing he sees. The man seemed too focused on his search at first. No sound could gather his attention. In a moment of dead silence, he might have felt a presence. It must have been Tenpo's eyes that became too heavy on him. Slowly, he lifted his head. His eyes crept up the tree, without rush, until they met Tenpo's. Well, hi there. Aren't you a bit creepy? You're almost like the Mothman. They stared at each other for a couple of seconds before perfectly still. The man spent most of that time trying to make sense of the sight. What am I looking at? I must be mistaking a shadow or a cluster of leaves for something completely different, is what he thought. A very inventive failure of perception. Something. Someone. Absurd. Then Tenpo had an almost imperceptible change in expression. Only at that point the man realized he was looking at something actually real. Tenpo flew away with a sudden jump at the slightest movement of the man, who lost sight of him almost immediately. Shocked, he just stared at the empty space for a while. That moment changed their worlds entirely. Even Tenpo's, who had realized he hadn't just met a human like any other. He'd just met Marta's son. He wasn't expecting to meet him so suddenly. For the time being, he decided to abandon his plans for revenge. Yet, he had no reason to free him from guilt. Marta was still missing. February Part 1. Real confrontation between the two came some time later, in Marta's house. The front door was open. The human had been carrying all kinds of stuff inside for a while. It looked nothing like before. The whole entrance hall was missing, and many boxes were scattered around inside. The human had just come out of a room and suddenly saw Tenpo just past the doorstep, curiously looking around. The man froze, shocked. He backed away without even remembering about the door he'd just closed behind him. That caused a loud noise that suddenly pulled Tenpo from his looking around and got him to screech straight at Marta's son. The man raised his hands defensively. No, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to do that. As he asked himself, does it even understand what I'm saying? Tenpo's attitude turned calmer. Just as you'd expect from anyone who understands the gesture and sentence. However, Tenpo decided not to waste any time and immediately came clear. Marta, where is she? At first, the man didn't know what to answer. The unexpected sound of Tenpo's voice seemed to freeze him. Having no patience at all for the moment, Tenpo started looking around and thrashing whatever looked unfamiliar to him. Please stop! The man spoke with worry, but gently. Mara isn't here. She's not in this house. Tenpo listened on, looking angered. She's in town. She was sick, so she went there to get cured. The man then witnessed an incredible change of expression on Tenpo's face. Hurt by those words, the pain he felt transpired his honest eyes. The man meant to say something else, but was left speechless by the other's reaction. Tenpo suddenly turned around and hastily stepped outside. The human just stood there, hearing sad, raspy screams, slowly getting farther and farther. February Part 2. The weather slightly warmed up during the last days of February, and a new meeting warmed the atmosphere between the two as well. The human had been picking up fruit while exploring a lower area of the mountain. Instead of returning home, he decided to explore further and kept going up, entering a denser forest area. Tenpo was surprised to see him there, far from the house. The man soon spotted him and walked to the tree he was standing on. Before saying anything, he raised his basket in the air. Have some. Or take the whole basket if you like. Tenpo stared, surprised, then inspected the offer. I'm guessing you're not used to this. He grabbed a small orange from a pocket inside his jacket and placed it in the basket. Look, this is right. Herman slowly lowered the basket, dumbfounded. You should leave. This is no place for humans to be. That was an unexpected change in tone. Those cold words, carried by a displeased and tired look, felt unexpectedly harsh. The man's first instinct was not to defend his position and leave, but as he was about to turn around, the other continued. Boars can be aggressive around here. Avoid these denser areas. Then a small, odd smile grew on Tenpo's face, and his tone changed a bit. Wait, so we're becoming friendly? How the hell did you end up in the closet? And after all, I'm sure humans have rules that prevent them from coming here, right? What makes you think it's safe to just go around so casually? Pay more attention to your own rules. With that, Tenpo left, and Herman was left there confused, wondering, and somehow really happy. February Part 3. Just some days later, Tenpo caught an inviting smell coming from the house. He saw smoke coming from the kitchen. What really grabbed his attention, however, were a couple of foxes standing not too far away from where he was. They had definitely noticed the smell as well. After contemplating for a moment to just let the situation unfold, he decided to fly on the house's roof. The foxes wouldn't have dared to get close if he was there. The man heard him land and went outside to check. As he saw Tenpo, his face lit up. Foxes gathered out here. Hey, hello! Thanks for the warning. I'd better close the windows then. Since you're here, why don't you come inside and have lunch with me? Tenpo really did consider declining the offer, but the smell was so nice. That's pork. I also have some veal you should try. Help yourself, there's plenty. Tenpo tried to understand what was going on. A human trying his best to display good intentions is what it seemed. This time, it was clearly no casual gesture. He was invited inside to take a seat, and there was apparently more than enough for 2 people to eat. The man placed some plates on the table and went back to roast some more meat. So do you reckon Herman was Manhole? I don't think I've introduced myself yet. My name is Herman. Tenpo. Herman hesitated for a moment and turned to face the other. Tempo? Te-na-po. For some reason, that caused the man to crack a surprised smile. He hastily turned back, but his feelings could be heard in his jittery tone. Tenpo, I'm really happy to meet you. Do you live on the mountain? Yeah. Tenpo felt somewhat confused. This man looked an odd mixture of nervous and sleepy, and he was finding it more and more difficult to hold any kind of animosity towards him. Herman is a weird name, compared to the ones I usually hear, I mean. It's not a name from around here. I was named after my grandpa, my father's side, born in another nation. He moved to this country to marry my grandmother. Tenpo isn't a known name to me too. Is it common here on the mountain? Herman had so many questions clouding his mind, but he really didn't want to come off as invasive. No, only mine. The man turned around and saw Tenpo was already almost done with his meal. Did you like it? You should try this one too. Wait! Would you prefer it raw by chance? I don't know how I didn't think of that. I liked it cooked as well. They kept eating in silence for a bit. Tenpo rarely ever interacted with people besides Marta, and found the situation was somewhat surreal, almost as surreal as it was from Herman. When the man gathered the courage to, he finally spoke up. I couldn't help but think about what you said the other day. What did I say? About the area being restricted access. It was not until you talked about it that an obvious question came to mind. Since authorities have always been vague on the matter, do you know why it is? Are you the reason? Herman couldn't eye Tenpo directly after saying that. That's a big question. If I answer it, it'll grant me big question rights. Uh-huh. Oh, of course. I'm probably one reason. There was a long silence, during which Herman was clearly trying to come up with only one follow-up question, rather than the hundreds his brain was being overloaded with. This process was soon interrupted. So, it's my turn now. When will Marta be back? Ah, about that. I'm not sure. Once she gets better, I think. And why are you here? To take care of the house while she's away. Marta is my mother. I know. The man stared at him, surprised. What did you do to the house? The house was in bad condition. It's a very old house that really needed maintenance. Most of the walls were moldy, and as for the furniture, Tenpo eyed him suspiciously. Well, recently I had to leave the house I used to live in. I needed a place to move to, so I brought my stuff here and brought some new furniture. They sat in silence for a while, having their meals. Tell me one thing. How do you know I'm Marta's son?
She told me about you. I saw you in a picture.
There was a pause. Then the new thoughts and questions pushed each other in Herman's mind. Was she your friend? Do you miss her? Oh, so maybe that's why I weren't able to see the pictures earlier, because it would have shown me Herman? Tenpo looked as if he had just been slapped to the face, and Herman immediately regretted his words. Yet beholding the spectrum of different emotions succeeding themselves on Tenpo's face was worth the risk of whatever was coming next. Herman was amazed at this being in front of himself. It was indeed a person, mentally and emotionally, developed as much and possibly more than you'd expect from an average human. His amazement came an unrecognizable, frantic feeling in his heart as he saw him get up and turn towards the door. I won't ask you about her again. I want you to tell me if she's feeling better and when she'll be back next time we meet. All right, Tenpo. Just before leaving, Tenpo slightly turned around and spoke in a completely different tone. Don't ever tell other humans about me. Being this tolerant of humans is unlike me, and it might not last. March Part 1. Tenpo had picked up a bunch of fruit that grew in a secluded area of the mountain. He felt he had a favor to return and was really eager to have some news on Marta. So that's how he showed up in front of the house. He sort of regretted ending his meeting with Herman with harsh words. He was Marta's son after all. There was no point in antagonizing him. Herman, on the other hand, was too shocked by the whole situation. Everything Tenpo said, every single word he spoke, kept replaying in his mind over and over for days. The aggressive last part was duly noted, but he couldn't help but focus on the good side of it. He was openly tolerated, at least for the time being. He also learned that Tenpo intended to meet him again, but he wasn't expecting it to happen so soon. I'm sorry, I have no news regarding my mother. I assume that's why you're here. Tenpo felt let down, but tried not to show it too much. But please stay for lunch again. He agreed. That day they talked much more freely. So, Tenpo, it was correct of me to assume you also eat fruit, right? Of course. I was in doubt. Your claws can give the wrong impression. Your teeth don't look too kind either. I also hunt. Would you like to hunt? Almost everything that's available. But you prefer birds? For some reason, Tenpo felt those words as some sort of accusation. Well, who doesn't? What about humans? Humans aren't good preys. They're dangerous. They easily carry firearms. Also, if one of them dies, usually more humans will come looking for the dead one. It's annoying. You are absolutely right. Sounds like he already tried, he thought. He definitely wasn't as worried as he should have been. What about you? You eat differently from Mara. Do you eat meat very often? Not really. Well, actually, I do. Now that I think about it, I don't mind fish either, once in a while. Eh. Tenpo made a face. What? Care. Sounding more determined this time, he just shook his head. Okay, I won't invite you for lunch when I bring fish. The atmosphere between the two was changing. Humans fear what they don't understand, you know. That's why most would be shocked by seeing a creature whose existence they completely ignored. Even I was quite shocked the first time we met in the forest, and not much less the next time, when you talked to me. Tenpo stared at him. You never know what to expect from an unknown being.
And now you know what to expect?
Huh? No, I don't. But through sheer luck, I found you agreeable and nice enough to accept the food I offer you rather than preying on me. And that seems like a good sign.
And what if you're wrong?
Tenpo was smiling. Herman couldn't tell his feelings apart. How was he supposed to react to that? Damn, I'm in trouble then. Tenpo's smile got bigger. It was an innocent smile, but still, this Tenpo was a bit of a sadist, wasn't he? Herman was amazed. It seemed like they were on friendly terms, or so he hoped. Anyway, these oranges you brought are really good. March Part 2. Tenpo decided to show Herman the place that yielded the best oranges, just as he had shown Marta before. To get there, Tenpo would fly from one tree to another to get a better sense of direction. Herman followed him until he saw the orange trees himself. Tenpo harvested some oranges higher up on the trees and brought them to Herman. They kept going for a while, and Herman harvested the ones that fell on the ground. When he was done, he saw Tenpo squatting on a tree branch, just staring at him. Tired? This is more than enough already. Instead of giving an answer, Tenpo jumped into action to bring down some more oranges, faster than before. You take everything as a challenge, don't you? The sunset was approaching. Thank you. I'll have to bring some of these to a couple of friends. They walked together on the way back.
Do you go to the town every morning?
Almost.
How is it?
It's noisy, crowded and warmer. It never snows down there. And I really don't miss it when I'm here. March Part 3. So those two really are bonding. I've got to think it's only an accident then that he ends up injured in the cupboard, right? After a long flight, Tenpo landed on the house's roof. He tried to be as quiet as possible. He came down to his knees and lowered his head and wings, leaning out the roof to look at the house's entrance. Having an idea of the man's habits, he was expecting him to come out at any moment now. He was still deciding whether to just observe him, as he had already done a couple of times, or to scream at him suddenly when he came out. Tenpo immensely enjoyed scaring humans. He hadn't noticed something though. Herman was already outside, fumbling with the generator in the back of the house. He'd seen him land and quietly got around the house until he could see him again, all flattened, looking down the roof. Hey Tenpo, how are you? Tenpo jumped straight onto his knees, alarmed. The feathers on his head got all ruffled. Herman was about to leave. He really wanted to stay now that Tenpo was here. Have a good day. I hope I see you later. Tenpo had gotten caught. He was really tempted to just hide or fly away, but what would have been the point? He stared at Herman with a confused expression, then he raised his hand and waved. Spring came, and so did many occasions to meet. The two had become close. April. Herman was cooking some sort of stew that day, which was unusual. He'd occasionally asked Tenpo to taste, and his enthused response didn't really bring him down. It just needs some more time. Maybe some salt.
No more salt.
Herman, in the meantime, had noticed the other was focused on a vase he had found who knows where. It looked unfamiliar, so it had to be his mother's. Some small objects could be heard scattering around in the vase, but they were hard to get out because of the vase's narrow opening. Finally, Tempo managed to get a key out of it. Found something. Tempo stared at Herman, looking lost in thought, as if taking some sort of decision. They went upstairs, into Marta's room. They opened a drawer with many of Marta's personal belongings. Tempo was unsure whether this was right or not, but he'd gathered the feeling that over the years Marta and her son had grown incredibly cold and distant. He remembered Marta often cried with regret, and Herman would sometimes appear bitter when talking about her. Tempo didn't like this. He wanted to make things right one way or another. They found diaries, recipes, drawings, even Tempo's from many years before, and even some letters from Herman's father. They talked about the past for a while. Something that changed Herman's outlook on things was discovering that the first time Tempo met Marta, she didn't yet live on the mountain. She moved there much later, and that was more than 20 years before. It was a long afternoon. In the end, they both found themselves with much heavier moods, for different reasons. Some of my fondest memories are tied to this room. I'm glad you left it mostly as it was. May. It was very early in the morning. The sun was barely risen. It was windy and a bit cold for the season. Herman had taken a stroll and found Tempo along the way, so they kept walking together until they reached a hill. I know you used to spend a lot of time at my mother's house when she was here. I don't want to change your habits. I know it's not the same, but as I told you before, you can stay. There's a lot of space. I'm not even home most of the day. Seriously, it would make me happy. There was a short silence between the two. Mara used to keep her bedroom window open at all times, so I could get in whenever I wanted. Good. That's what I'll do too. Summer arrived. By then, they both had successfully invaded the other's life. At the end of summer, a particular event defined their relationship. September. One evening turned night, Tenpo found himself flying in torrential rain. It happened quite suddenly. No hiding spots around, no caves, nothing could shield him. An increasingly impetuous wind made flying impossible. Fortunately, Herman's house was close by. Once he arrived, he noticed the car wasn't there, and the house's lights were all out. He tried getting in by the bedroom window, but that was closed as well. Finding that window closed gave him an unexpected feeling of pain. He screeched, hoping that Herman could somehow be around and hear him. Herman was driving and was still far, far away. He could barely see the mountain road. During the drive, he had been concerning himself over the generator outside and any and all of the damages that the weather might have caused. Once he arrived, he immediately forgot those concerns. He pulled the handbrake and got out so fast the car hadn't fully stopped yet. Ten! What are you doing out here? Tenpo was holding on to the corner of the front door. He'd heard Herman speak and got closer, but did not move. When Herman was by his side, he barely looked at him from the tail of his eye. Oh, Tempo's mad at us. They got inside, both completely wet. Herman hurriedly brought some towels. Tenpo looked impassive, and that made his heart sink. He held onto his sinking heart in silence for a while as he started the fireplace. "How long have you been out there? Why didn't you get in by the bedroom window?" The lack of response didn't stop him. He started blabbering about how the worst things happen at the worst times, and of course that day he had to be exceptionally late. Then he tried to get Tenpo to sit down and dry his wings by the fireplace. Tenpo didn't seem inclined to take the suggestion, nor to pay him any attention in general. At that point, Herman left for a bit to change clothes and grab a towel to dry his hair. When he came back, Tenpo was still where he had left him and was staring at the fire. Sit down, with your wings facing the fire." Tenpo started to appear annoyed, and even though that wasn't good, it was at least something. With a heavy sigh, Herman sat down, facing the other. "I'm sorry. I saw the window was closed. I don't know how it happened. I don't remember closing it. I wish I could have foreseen this." As Herman was talking, Tenpo walked a couple of steps close to him, silent, looking lost in thought and still annoyed. He then looked towards the man, trying to avoid his eyes. Herman was about to process the thought of Tenpo finally accepting his advice to sit down and dry his wings by the fire. He didn't have the time. Tenpo, without hesitation, climbed on his legs and rested his body against his own. Herman couldn't react. He didn't expect that kind of gesture, especially in the middle of that situation. It was different from anything that had ever happened between them until that point. Tenpo's wings had dried off, but that didn't matter. They kissed. The time that followed was without a doubt the happiest for both. Then, 7 months later, everything changed. It all started with a rashly taken decision. April. On a bright moonlight night, a restless Tenpo quietly exited Herman's house, flying out of the window. He needed to fly for a while and feel the breeze. He reached a place on the other side of the mountain with a beautiful view. He took in the view, feeling a bit melancholic. At that moment, he heard a noise. It was far away, but it also seemed everywhere around. He couldn't pinpoint a direction. A presence? No, many, many presences. He looked up, straight at the moon. An immense flock was flying so high it was barely visible. Only the bright moon and a mostly clear sky made it possible to notice. Just as impulsively as he had come to that place, he was caught by the desire of following them. The desire wasn't unknown to him. Being identified by humans would have been a risk, flying by himself, but with a group like that, flying at night, he would have gone unnoticed. He wouldn't have had the time to tell Herman and to not lose track of the group. Will they let me follow them? Where will they go? Hold on, you're just going to abandon Herman? Not even say goodbye? You guys have been together for, 7 months? Will I be able to hide during the day? It was a great risk, but he really wanted to go. He had no time to think it over. He had to try. Clutching his hands, feeling sparks in his heart, he followed his instinct and the flock. September. Oh, so that's the event that hurt Herman. It took months, but Tenpo returned, feeling born anew. With another long nightly flight, he landed on the roof of Herman's house. He had no time to take in the familiar view. Strange noises succeeded themselves one after the other until he recognized the sound of the front door opening. A man that looked like Herman came out on unsteady feet. He turned around and walked backwards hastily until his eyes could reach the view on Tenpo, standing on the roof. Tenpo smiled brightly at first, but then the smile turned into a confused expression. "Oh, Tenpo, you fool. You can't expect Herman to be happy that you've returned." The two reunited. Herman looked so worn down, he was almost unrecognizable. He acted as nothing was wrong, or nothing strange had happened. Whatever Tenpo had in mind to say just got lost in his sudden confusion he felt once he saw Herman. In the end, he managed to explain what had happened during those last months. Herman didn't reserve any special reaction for Tenpo's explanation and looked as if he wasn't really taking in anything. His words and responses were erratic, disconnected. Tenpo got worried. He felt that asking Herman what was up with him would have brought him nowhere. He had already given a vague explanation about having had some very rough work days, and Tenpo knew it couldn't have been just that. His experience with Marta led him to think Herman might have gotten sick while he was away. He decided the only thing to do was staying close to him and keeping him company. They sat on the couch. Tenpo was asked about his experience. Soon, Herman gave up his attempts at conversation and just sat there in silence. He seemed to be fighting between the desire to stay awake and the need to sleep. Tenpo pushed his shoulder against the couch as a way to tell him to lay on his back. Then he rested his head against Herman's arm, and at that the man almost immediately shut off. "That's good," Tenpo thought. He fell asleep as well not much later. "Oh, sitting up, that can't be good for our back." Waking up was unusually hard. Tenpo had never slept so heavily, and for the moment he couldn't understand why. He didn't remember where he had fallen asleep, nor he tried to recognize his surroundings. He closed his eyes again. At some point, he woke up again. He recognized Marta's bedroom. He felt a strong discomfort that gradually grew to an unidentifiable pain, and for some reason, he couldn't move. His body felt limp and incredibly tired, but the growing fear inside him gave him the energy to turn his head and look around. He tried to gather the energy to move and scream. He tried to call Herman's name, but an odd hissing sound was all he could muster. Soon enough, Herman entered the room and got close to his side. Tenpo looked at him. His eyes looked empty. He seemed unreachable. Tenpo tried asking for help, but Herman didn't respond in any way. He started talking, as if talking to himself. "It has all been wrong from the start. I didn't question you, your being, your existence. It took me this long to realize how foolish I was to fall for it. I fell for my own tricks for 2 years, and it's time to make it stop. Point is, Tenpo, you just not." Tenpo managed to scream. He was unsure of what Herman meant to say, and he couldn't even rationalize his own fear. "Oh, damn. Wait, so by Tenpo ditching Herman, Herman is full on cracked?" He had no idea what was going on. "I just want this to end. You won't remember me. Will I remember you?" At that point, Herman administered an injection, and Tenpo gained the most bitter of realizations at the very last moment. As he let go of his strength, will, and consciousness. Fourth Rebirth, Part 2. So I definitely think Herman is Manhole, right? I mean, they kind of had the same lines, like, "You won't remember me." Okay, a meaningful wound, an undead shadow of himself. Herman stared at the now empty spot inside the wardrobe. Where did it go? A feeling of desperation took over him. A sudden wave of black matter pushed him away from the wardrobe, making him fall. He sat there in a pool of black, trying to let numbness overtake pain and fear. The windows were black. The earthquakes had stopped. The room was slowly filling up. Black substance kept dripping from the ceiling and seeping through the walls. Don't look for it. It is no more. Tenpo! Look at the state of that hand. It's disgusting. Oh, is this my injury? Oh! You just left it to rot like that. Were you waiting for it to fall off or what? That's the sort of thing that can kill you, you know. Did you mean to die that way? No! But I did not want it to heal either. Not that I think I could heal. Had I found you dead for such a dumb reason, I would have been sad. I would have been mad. That's the only way I could be any angrier right now. That's not something I should be telling you, is it? Let's get to what I need to tell you then. Did you know that your mother is dead? She's in a coma. Not anymore. Well, I did guess that. The 19 missed phone calls. I guess he has his way of knowing. So, she's dead now. She was ill. I wonder for how long she's been. I only found out incidentally the first time I came here. She didn't even recognize me. It was already too late, but she wouldn't hold it against me. She wasn't expecting a visit from me anyway. The earthquake started once again, more violent than before. Herman heard some terrifyingly loud noises. It was as if the house was sinking into the ground. The room appeared to collapse. The ceiling and the floor seemed to be slowly getting closer to each other. This is real. Finally. It's odd how, between us, I'll be the one to reunite with her in the end. Wait, so is Tenpo not dead? Then unexpectedly, the shocks got weaker and stopped once again. You know what I liked about Herman above anything else? He was a good person. I have observed more people than you'd think during my time, and I couldn't help but feel he was different than most. As it turns out, this man completely fooled me. Isn't that right? I'm sure you thought too highly of me, but I never meant to fool you. Tell me how it came to this. Was it your goal since the beginning? Or did you start hating me somewhere along the way? Possibly when you abandoned me for like 7 months without telling me? I never hated you. Not once. Not for a moment. Then why? Herman woke up and slowly dragged himself across the bed to turn on the lamp. He looked at the time and then at the open window. Looks like someone was even earlier than me. It's not even dawn yet. His day went on as it normally would have. He went to work and came back home. The day after he did the same, and then the day after again. Tenpo just wasn't around those days. Where could he be? Was he angry at me? The first few days, he felt just a bit restless. The 5th day was a Saturday. Herman dedicated entirely to looking for Tenpo in the forest. Whenever Tenpo wasn't around, he had a few specific places he ended up being. He wasn't in any of those places. The following days, Herman tried new places. It was 2 weeks' time. Herman had explored every inch of the mountain. Tenpo was nowhere to be found. I searched for you so much. Every waking moment, I quit my job. The longer it went, the harder it was. Something happened to him. Maybe he's hurt and got stuck somewhere. Someone captured him. The only hope I had was that somehow you decided to leave and never come back. You just left, like I did, like my mother did. Maybe you hated me. Maybe you were tired of me. You had shown no sign of feeling that way. It was my only hope, but I didn't make any sense. You disappeared for 5 months. I did some stupid things to keep it together. At some point, the pain I felt started to seem surreal. I remember him so well. There is no way. He's been torn away from me so suddenly, for no reason. How could anyone ever accept it? How could that just happen? How am I supposed to believe it? I can't pinpoint exactly when, but a time came where believing you never existed at all seemed the easiest thing to believe. In fact, it became the only logical explanation. I had no strength left to keep believing you were no more. I could only believe you never were to begin with. All of the time I had spent with you, I believed to be a fantasy, a symptom of an ill mind. From that point on, it became hard for me to discern between real and unreal. Herman had just come out of his bedroom and was heading for the stairs. Suddenly, he heard a noise. It was a noise he hadn't heard in a long time. It hadn't been really that long, but to him, at that moment, it felt as if that noise came from a different reality entirely. It was a close sequence of thump noises coming from the roof. For a second he froze, his mind trying to process that sound. He ran down the stairs and across the dining room, knocking down a few chairs. He got out, and walking backwards on trembling legs, he laid his eyes on the figure on the roof. Then suddenly, you were there, looking indifferent on the house's roof. I thought of you as an impossibility before, but by then, you really were impossible to me. I was gone. When at the peak of my belief of you being a figment of my imagination, you just appeared, out of nowhere. I'm not sure what happened. I believed my mind was playing me for a fool. If you were a product of my mind, you were my mind's to give and my mind's to take away. I couldn't bear with it. I had to regain control somehow. I had to deal with the fact you weren't real in some way. I decided the only way to fight against my ill mind was to prove myself you weren't real. Whatever appeared to be in my house, sleeping beside me on the couch, never existed at all. Making up something I can't live without, and then taking it suddenly away from me, is definitely something my mind would do. I am not going to put up with its self-destructive whims. What I did to you wasn't planned. Those sedatives I used on you, they were meant for me. I got them while you were gone. If I could go back to that day and do something different, that would be actually using them on myself. Tenpo isn't here, nor anywhere else. Tenpo is not. Will I remember you? For a while, I didn't really understand what I had done. Oh, Tenpo is definitely dead, right? There are holes on the floor. I've seen them open right now. Have I been imagining it? Oh, so that's how my hand gets infected. You were dead. There were no wounds. Your heart was still. Your blood was still. You've been for still. Yet I can't have just imagined this. There's our wound. Alright, so we've got a meaningful wound, and now we just need undead oh. We need to click on Tenpo at some point. I can't have imagined this. Oh, it's leaking everywhere. The plague is spreading. It went through the bed. It went through the floor. It ate at my hand. Your body, however, was untouched by it. Oh, that's because you're secreting it. Him. Sanity resurfaced in the most painful way. I started to face the fact my memories might have been real. You were real. Everything I feared might have happened to you. All of the worries I used to have. Everything became true by my own hand. For a while, I tried to deny it. While gaining that realization, however, I also gained a hope. Maybe it was just a suggestion. But I could have sworn there was something that led that force's movements, its direction. Something that's not alive cannot move on its own. It couldn't have been over, just like that. Despite what I had done, whatever it was that went through the ceiling and through my hand was still moving. I knew you're strong, Tenpo. I knew you would have come back. When the earthquake started, I knew they were a sign. I waited for you. I'm here only to pay my debt. Then, the house seemed to fully crash underground in one go. All around the house, the ground seemed to get dug up by something emerging. Two enormous black waves emerged, one in front of where the house was, and one in the back. They seemed to be wings. Oh, Tenpo, you have grown. The body they belonged to then emerged as well. It was an enormous Tenpo-like colossus. Wait, if you've emerged from the house, does that mean you consumed Herman? It had absorbed and crushed the house inside itself. The gigantic Tenpo looked alike, seemed ready to roar and scream, but no sound of the sort came out of it. All that could be heard were the thundering sounds of the earth being shook and the house being destroyed. Herman, inside the giant, was being crushed and drowned. Tenpo's mind was ablaze. In this violent frenzy of his thoughts was scattered, blinded. However, one thought, just one, won over any other. He thought of his dear Mara. She wanted him to live so strongly, and Tenpo knew she would have wanted the same for her own son. She wouldn't want him to die. I wouldn't want him to die. You're gonna puke him up, aren't you? The giant stopped his movements. It was as if time had stopped. It looked literally frozen in time. Oh, you Congratulations, Herman. I think you're being baffed. Then it all came down. A heavy fall of rubble, wood, metal, and concrete. An unusual black cloud grew on top of it. The house was no more. All was destroyed. Trees uprooted, land ruined. A black curse seemed to have been inflicted upon it. From those tainted ruins, slowly, Tenpo emerged. Do you feel better now? Soon, he spotted the man lying on the ground a few steps ahead. Ah, so you were that former shadow. Herman, you dead? Aw, we even got the little birds. Oh, you're just gonna leave him there? I can kind of see why he did murder you. After a while, he flew away. I'm not sure what happened to Tenpo after that. We'll have to meet again one day, but not right now. I have other pastimes for now. Fourth Rebirth, Part 3, Epilogue. Valeria!
I'm sorry, I woke you up. This is too sudden, isn't it? It's because visiting time is so little. How do you feel?
Very confused. And kind of in pain.
I'm so happy.
That I'm in pain? That's a bit vindictive.
I mean, I've heard you were almost done for, and now you're just sitting there saying you're kind of in pain. Anyway, I noticed those beautiful flowers.
What? Oh, right.
I haven't talked to Jin yet, but I bet those are her doing. On that note, I brought some biscuits for when you feel better.
Oh, thanks.
I did meet Felice, however. He was so happy. He said nobody expected you to recover like this.
Yeah, I've been told.
I don't even want to imagine what would have happened if he hadn't gone to your house that day.
What?
He was worried because of the earthquakes and the avalanches. He probably wanted to get you to leave the house. Imagine what he went through when he found there was no house at all anymore, and to find you there among the rubble, unconscious. The timing was incredibly lucky. Haven't you two talked about it yet? It's crazy what sort of things can happen between close friends. Herman, there is something I need to tell you. It's what I mainly came here for. I want you to forgive me. These last years, I never really noticed what you were going through. It was my mistake not noticing it. It must have been too self-absorbed, too focused on my own needs. I probably tormented you while you were dealing with heavier thoughts. I just didn't know. I wish you had told me. I'm not sure what happened to you lately, but I can't help but feel everything would have been different if I'd been more aware of your feelings before. What happened between us was terrible, and in the end, what I think really led to it was that we just failed to communicate. I want to help you now, be near you. I ask for nothing else.
Thank you, Valeria. That'd make me immensely happy.
Herman? Thank you. We'll get through this moment. You'll see. Everything will go back to normal.
Oh, I think Herman is still hung up on Tenpo. Is he out there? I'm sure it will. Oh, hello, manhole. Who are you? Wait, did I get it backwards? Was manhole an version of Tenpo instead?
Well, I hope you enjoyed that playthrough of Tenpo Is. I think our friends were right. They were right to worry about us. I mean, we did accidentally kill Tenpo. At least temporarily. If you enjoyed that playthrough, I'd greatly appreciate if you could like this video and subscribe to this channel. But other than that, it was a spooky day and I'll catch you next time, guys.